Hello, it's Donna. Um, so it's time to sew our wedges, our units, into rows to form big hexagons. So you would lay your wedges like this, your wedge piece, into rows, and I start mine with the up piece, as I like my corners to end where it comes down. And if I started with the bottom hexagon, bottom half, my corners would end like this. Of course, on my first one, I filled this in with units to make it straight, but I think I'm going to have a edge on this quilt. So you would line your wedges up into rows, forming half hexagon shapes. One will be the top of the hexagon, next to be the bottom, then the top, and so on, depending on how wide you'd like your quilt. And then the second row would be the opposite. It would be the bottom half. So you'd have your, line it up, your blocks as a bottom half of a hexagon, then a top half of a hexagon, and so on. Then once you get all your rows sewed, we will join the rows. But I saved putting these wedges together because I wanted to show you something important about putting these together, so that your seams, when it comes time to join these rows, that this all goes together good. Is that six seam lines. When I sewed these first two, when you sew the first two, and that's how I do sew mine. I sew them two, and till I have a whole row of twos. And at the last one, I've had one extra, and I have to add it on separate. But you would do all your pieces the same way. No matter if you sewed them together one at a time, two at a time. When I sew these first two pieces together, I line them up even on top. My ruler just happens to have the little tip cut off, so that makes it easy to line up too. But if it's not a blunt tip, then you just line the two little points up like this. So I line it up good, and I put a pin here, and I put a pin up here at the top. Well, like I did here. And generally, once you get those two pins in, these just kind of fall pretty close to where they need to be, and I pin those also. And then you'll sew your seam all the way down, 1/4 inch seam. And that seam should start at the left corner of that blunt edge. And try not to try to be as consistent as you can sewing this seam. You don't want to veer and not catch enough, or come up this way and catch too much. You want it pay attention and stay as even as you can sewing these. Now, once you get it sewed and you take it off your machine, I run mine through the same direction so I know which is my right piece and my left piece. And I got these numbered for rows. But when you take it off of there, fold the top piece to the right. That puts your seam going toward the right. So every seam you sew after that, you want all your seams to the right. Now you'll take it and you'll press it. You'll press it with that seam to the right. You'll lay this piece on there straight, just like you did the first two pieces. You lay this one on there straight. And I'm going to go ahead and sew this one while we're... And you line it up. It'll line up a little different. It'll lay to where that corner runs to that corner. So I'm going to pin that and just go ahead and stitch that, because I'm going to show you how these really don't have to line up as much as I'm doing it here on this part, but I like mine too. It should line up anyhow, but it does make it easier if you try to keep them. And I offset my seams. Wait, this seam will be running to the wider edge, and on this piece they'll be running toward the smaller edge. That way they just sort of nestle up against each other. This is just my later ender piece. I got a quilt I'm making with these. Been making 4 patches for years. All my excess from other quilts and stuff, I get weird shaped ones too, but I just trim them up once. Some people cut theirs down to what size scrap. I do my scrap system a little differently than most other people. But it's organized, so I know where it's at. So now when I open this piece up, I was going to show you how this one lined up. And how it, on the back side, when you sewed it, maybe I need to come down. But this one lined up with the blunt edge to the side of this one. And I sewed down. But this one will be the same way when we're looking at it. We'll open it up, and that puts our seam going toward the right. Which, of course, it'll look left now that I turned it over, but now our seams are all going right. And the reason you want to do that, now when we sew these two together, we still do everything the same way. We want our seams to the right, even though these aren't the center. It's still going to be 6 points of fabric coming together. But the reason we do that is so when I get this row sewed together, that's my last row, by the way, then I sew all my rows together and I'll have my top together. But when it comes to joining the rows, say this was already attached to the rest of the row. When you go to line everything up and pin it, and I pin, especially at major intersections, these seams, when you pick it up, these seams were all running to the right. These seams were all running to the right. But this one's turned down, so it now makes, when this one's turned down, it makes them all running toward the left. So they will line up. Right here, you'll have all this on the right, and all this now is on the left. And you slide them up till they kind of lock. They'll kind of like lock together. There, I can't see good from. And I put a pin right there. I put a pin as pretty close to the because I like to sew right up to that before taking my pin out. Because I'm going to cross, when I come across over my seam, which is a 1/4 inch, it should just fall like right up here at the top of that X. Like you would want to be just one hair length to this side with your stitch seam. So when you came across there with your stitch seam, you wouldn't chop no point off. And everything here will be nested good. When you sew this together like that, and say it's all sewn, all these pieces, and you open it up, this seam here will be going the same direction as all these seams. And so this one would be pressed going the same way as these two seams. I can't show you with this pin, but everything will be going continuous around. This one got ironed a little backwards, but it's right up here, so well, I don't guess that matters then. As long as they're all going to the same right at the top. So all I've got to do is sew this to end of this row. And these sew together different because there's no seams to match. I put a pin in there to let me know which end to sew it to. I would just flip this one down and it'll come down this direction. And I'll line these up. You want to use that little point to... That was something else I was going to show you. I use that little point to line my third piece over. And then I flip it back to the right. And then I stitch. Because you want these seams to be going back to the right too. But to know how much to place that tip over, because you will have little dog ears on these pieces, I push this one back and then put this one up there to it to measure how far. Then I can push it back. Well, grab that and hold it good and push this back over. And I sew the 1/4 inch seam. Oh, well, I need to sew this piece anyways. This will be my last pieces to sew on. I already have I have 4 top rows sewn together and 4 bottom rows sewn together. And these 2 rows are going in the middle between the 2 4 rows. I'm going to probably sew this to the top 4 rows, this to the bottom 4, and then join them all in the middle. Or I might just join these 2 rows together and add it to one of the 4, and then join them together. So I have less to deal with, less weight. I think that would be a good plan for it. The light makes the colors look kind of dingy in the house, but because it's overcast today, but it really has turned out pretty. My all but a few of these are Adidas Sitar. There's a fat quarter bundle of her batiks, jelly bean batiks. I didn't use it. Had some lights, really light ones in here, like a beige. And I only used the darkest light ones. Plus it had some really bright pink ones. I didn't use those either. Okay, so we got all our rows together. Okay, so I'm going to open that toward the right too. Well, this is where we sewed it, I'm sorry. Down here, but it's going to the right also. Then I need to pin and join these 2 rows. Now some people like to stick a pin through that point right there. and match it to the piece under it. But generally, if you sew pretty consistent, you won't have to do that. Well, I mean, if you're entering this in a quilt show or something, yeah, you probably would want to. You could even glue base, however, what method you use that works for you would be what's... Yeah, everybody's different. And well, I'll just continue on, hopefully get this thing sewed together today. We've been doing a lot of outside work, with it being spring. I know most people are. So I don't get a lot of sewing like I was getting. But I'll maybe do another project and share with y'all and let y'all see the finished top I have here. I have a lot of tops I've finished over the winter that I've never shared anywhere. I might decide to share those. I'm just kind of up in the air on that one. But I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great Sunday. Thanks for watching.